So we were able to share my screen, and I'm going to show you several things that I have implemented into my organization, and this is in connection to slide 30, where you're separating the donors and communicating with them differently, and also just showing you a few different ways that we create automated responses. Of course, I'm using Salesforce as a database, so you can create a lot of those automated responses the moment you enter a person's contact, and the moment they sign up for a newsletter, automatically a little response is sent to them. But here is a chart of how this is for last year. For this year is a little bit different, but it's pretty much the overall is the same. If you see my mouse, I always separate it. We have the 2020 CDM donations, which is under my organization. My main organization is called Ceitci Demirkova Ministries. And then Changing a Generation is doing business as. So both names are registered under the same nonprofit. Then we have funds that are just general funds that are specifically for Changing a Generation. And out of Changing a Generation, we have Bulgaria and Uganda, and then we have Metro World Child Bulgaria, which now I have moved into just saying Changing a Generation Bulgaria specifically. And then underneath here, I will communicate with these partners differently depending if they're just donating generally for the fund, if they're donating towards a boy or a girl within our nonprofit in Bulgaria, and the same thing would be if they're donating towards a boy or girl on this side. So one is boy, the other one is girl. We send them different updates and letters from the kids. So it involves a lot of background work on emails and specificity on all of that. But then underneath the general fund, we have winter camp that we raise funds for. We have summer camp that we raise funds for. And then we have a big back to school project every year that happens around September. And I usually, if I have to start generating funds for any of these three things, the camps and the back to school project, I started at least 3 to 5 months in advance, because it's going to take that much time to really get the budget on that level. So I begin to create publications and information that will start giving the donors and the partners an idea that, hey, we're coming up with summer camp, and they will need to start donating towards that, and giving them different ideas of how last year's summer camp went, pictures from last year's summer camp. So I'm preconditioning them for several months straight, so that when September rolls around, we're not all of a sudden launching a campaign the week before we need money for back to school project. So that's one thing when you're structuring your overall organization, where funds are going to be donated and how receipts are going to be sent. This is done in lucidchart.com. It's a website that's pretty easy to use, and it's free of charge. If you're not doing a lot of different charts, you can do it on your app, on your phone. You can do it on your computer. It's pretty easy to create. You don't have to have special knowledge to create these boxes. It's going to be in your extra handout, the website information, so you're not going to miss out. And then we have here a separate donation bracket for everything that's happening in Bulgaria that I was raising funds for. So we created another project called Adapt a Neighborhood campaign, and underneath that Adapt a Neighborhood campaign, we insert the different neighborhoods that we're connected with. Then we have the Christmas fund campaign that's connected to that particular area, and then we have the playground funds. So all of that is also on our website. So if you go to my website, for example, and I'm going to do that here right now. Oh, okay. You're going to see as it pulls up that if I am going to be generating funds for any of these campaigns, my internet for some reason all of a sudden is slow. Maybe because we have all these computers running at the same time. Excuse me. You're going to see that all of this is pretty much on the very top. We recently won an award, so I wanted to create response there for people to see that we're a credible organization. And then what we're doing, joining in our initiatives. And then immediately we have the response to the COVID-19 Hope campaign, which is the very first page that comes up that people see. So everything kind of works in succinct way. And then as you scroll down, people automatically will know if we're working in Bulgaria, Ghana, and Uganda, and those pages will lead to those particular countries and then sponsorship of the children. I've learned something that in order for people to actually support what you are doing, you need to tell them what you have already done. And I've learned that from Bishop, that a lot of people say and try to raise funds on future idea and future things that they're about to do. And they have raised funds on things that they have already accomplished, because that is something that has built credibility over the years. So every year, we change this information here. So I would tell them, hey, this is how many kids we have sponsored. We added 4 more programs into our organization in 4 different locations. We added 375 children, and then we built 2 playgrounds. So you can structure it differently, but have something on the main page that shows progress that you are making, because it causes people to trust you. And if you're not doing anything and you have even a little bit of a breakthrough in something, make sure that you post it on the home page, not somewhere hidden 10 pages behind, because nobody's going to look around. Regular time of a person scrolling through your page is about a minute. And if they're really, really liking you, then it's about 2 minutes. So within the first 2 minutes, you got to know how they are going to capture your information. Is there enough donate buttons right away? This is one. Then there is another one. Then we have more up here when you're coming a little bit down, where people can take action. And then we also have it on the very bottom. So depending on the cell phone they're using or the computer, whatever they're doing, they will see all of these different actions and how they can take charge. So for example, our 2020 campaign, when you click here, it leads them to a different page, and it's going to show them adopt a neighborhood, what are our current needs, what they can be doing, and then how to get involved. And we have specified it in really easy ways: how to raise funds, become a monthly sponsor, or join us on a missions trip. And then immediately I'm giving them an opportunity to raise funds. So I'm not promoting this page right now. That's why it doesn't have any dollars and amounts to it. But I am promoting the page about the Hope campaign. And the Hope campaign is structured very similarly to this page, where you have the current need and information here, how to be a hope giver, what does the box of hope cost, and then immediately I am showing them how the campaign is moving. So not everybody is using this particular donate button to donate, so that's why their donations are not registered in here, because a lot of times people go on here and then they see this button, and this button leads them to a different donate page. Unfortunately, on Wix, which that's what I'm using as a platform, I can't connect this button and this button together, because those are 2 different applications. So it doesn't matter. We have raised over $10,000 in 1 month now. And that in general is a big deal for us to do it without me traveling whatsoever. that people have been able to just get online, donate, make it simple. And then I have a little story here. I won't play the whole thing, you can watch it later, but immediately within the same browser, there's a little story about one of the girls that we have seen help through our programs. And so they can relate, oh, wow, she's actually doing something. When we have a video of the actual boxes that are being distributed, I'm going to exchange this story here and post a video, but right now we just have pictures. And all of my pictures are actually right here on the bottom, and they move in this direction. And so people can see them, they can actually click on them, and they can see them in large version, and so they can click out of it. So see, it's made pretty simple. You don't have to complicate everything, just so that they know what to do and where to go. Now, I'll get out of this screen for a minute and then go back to a couple of different letters that I have. So we have automated letter that gets sent out to everybody that automatically signs up for a newsletter. So this is how this would look like, a little bit different. It would just say, thank you for subscribing. This is because it's automated. It goes on our automated letterhead. That's why it's done in Word. It wouldn't have our letterhead on here. This is just the text that goes in the automation when it's done. And then we have a different letter. Let me show you our letterhead. So I have separated it in two pieces. This is the letterhead on the bottom, so that if you're using a different program, you will have to separate it, what's going on top and what's going on bottom, so it becomes automated. So this just gives our information how they can locate us. Always have on your letterhead information of where you at and how they can locate you. Otherwise, it's not worth having a letterhead if it just has your name on top. Then on the top of the letterhead, we have here is the top of the letterhead. Oh, it's not it. It's just very simple. Ceitci Demirkova Ministries Changing a Generation, and it was established in 1995. I have two letterheads. This is one that comes from our automated database. And then we recently created another letterhead that I am not sure where it is at the moment, but I'll find it this afternoon and I'll show you that it's just a little bit different, but it connects to our supporters. Then, for example, our March Partners newsletter looks something like this. It just has a text to it. It's not a newsletter. It's just a text. And the partners pretty much know that I'm updating them on some information just pertaining to them. And this is part of the letterhead. That's why it's structured like this. But the newsletter has a lot of pictures and a lot of information. This is sent via email and a lot of times via mail as well. Now, when somebody subscribes or unsubscribes, we have a different automation for that as well. I don't send, hey, thanks for unsubscribing. These are automated, because I used to look through every single person that unsubscribed and get all upset about it. Why did they unsubscribe when they're the ones that subscribed? So now that this is sent out automatically, I can tell them, hey, thanks for contacting us. You've been unsubscribed. And automatically the database deletes their unsubscription subscription from us. We have different letters that we send as a thank you when somebody signs up as a partner. And that's something that I'm explaining here. When you have separation between partners and what you're doing, then those you write, you know, whenever once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, whenever you're changing the information. But it's going to be different for somebody that is supporting Bulgaria than for somebody that's supporting for Uganda or the playground. And so you just structure the letter, and then it gets onto the letterhead and it's being sent out. The database automatically populates the name of the person and the date when it's being sent out. When I didn't have a database like this, I did it with my assistant. Well, actually, my assistant did it one by one. A couple of other things here on return envelopes. This is what we use for a return envelope. We just have a simple inside insert of an envelope, and then outside is this with the stamp there. And then we included within our newsletter mail outs so that a person who wants to donate doesn't have to look for a different envelope. It automatically pulls up our envelope and sends it to us. And we have the different categories. You don't have to make it this complicated with this many categories. I just have a lot of things that I'm promoting, so it's all included on there. This is a donor that was communicating with me yesterday that needed an address update. And so this is how our current letterhead looks like at the moment. So we have it a little bit differently structured with the face of a child because I'm moving the organization towards being less centered on me and more centered on our work, because I want people to feel more included. And if they know that I'm the only person behind it and they only see my face, they can't fully engage in promoting me or the organization because it's just me. I'm not going to remove myself from being the founder and all of that, but I am trying to move them into thinking long term, because if something happens to me, I don't want the organization to fully be dead. Maybe my board of directors can continue on. You know, I'm still working this out where I can show people that they can be a part and continue with changing a generation and adopt it as their own. So appreciation to donors. Like I said, I use a lot of different ways to say thank you. And even people that donate a lot or donate a little, at least once a year, I write everybody a little personal thank you note. It doesn't have to be long. You just space them out whenever you have a little bit of time, and you just write some personal thank you notes to people who are your biggest sponsors or supporters, and people who may have supported you once. What I've done is I've taken our partners letter that are already printed out, and I just say on the very bottom, thank you so much, really appreciate you, in my personal writing, so that they feel like they're connected to me and it's not just an automated signature. We've done visitations. I visit a lot of the sponsors. I also send gifts from different times. If somebody's traveling to Bulgaria and we're able to get some gifts from there that are little, we always share them with the sponsors, and it can be just a little keychain, it could be a pen, it could be like a little card that shows, you know, our town or our city, or you can make those cards, but send them something. Here I showed you yesterday, or maybe I didn't. Did I show you that I made an album for our sponsors? And I got the idea from somebody else. So I saw this company, they were celebrating 40 years, and they had put an album together with everything that they have kind of done over the 40 years. Obviously, you can't put everything together. 40 years is a lot, but they structured it according to year. In 1999, what they have done, what was a highlight, 1998. And so that's how I structured my little album. And I printed about 100 of these just to people who have given large donations. I couldn't send this album to everybody because it's full color. It was quite expensive to make, but I wanted them at least once a year to see, once every 5 years or 10 years to see something that we have done. and to have it together. So I just put pictures together, and here we are. I did this on Shutterfly, and those albums, I got them on sale because when you order so many, you get big discount. Let's see, I've done t-shirts. My newest trendy shirt at the moment is connected to my book, and this is how it looks like, Motivated by the Impossible. All of our product is really on our website. We have several different merchandises, but if I see a partner coming to my table and I've known them for years and they're wanting to purchase something, I always say, you know, you're welcome to just have this as my gift to you. I don't always have to sell every single thing that is on my merchandise table. I've created little pens. So if I don't want to give an expensive shirt because this costs a lot more money than a pen, then, you know, I want to appreciate them somehow with something. And birthday cards, you know, now when you're on social media, it gives you the birthday date when the person is celebrating. And if you know these people and they're a part of your network, make a little point to just send them a quick message on their Facebook page. It goes a long way. People have always been amazed that they think I remember everybody's birthday. And I'm like, no, it just pops up and I just take a minute to say happy birthday. It means a lot to sponsors. Let's go on to the next page. Next slide, please. And that is, remember to stay connected even if people are not responding right away. So yes, that's what I have learned over the years, to never treat them as an object, but a person that you care for, and to continue to reach out to them. I have a lady at the moment, she is in her 80s. She's been our sponsor for the last 10 years. Once a year, she doesn't have a lot of money, but once a year she sends a $1,000 donation check. Well, I hadn't heard from her this entire year, so I decided I'm going to call her the other day and check up on her. And she has been extremely sick, really depressed, and pretty much abandoned in her house. She can't go out. She's in Seattle. And so it was good for me to connect with her, and she can't donate anymore. She's on a completely fixed income. She has absolutely no resources. And so I try to help her. See, you know, there are times when sponsors have helped me, and there could be other times when I can help them. She needed medication. She needed somebody to go and help her get out of the house and see a nutritionist. And so I was able to provide that for her. So you are basically, once people come to know you and they're a part of your team, so to say, even if they're donors, it's good for you to value them and to offer them assistance, because not every donor actually is very rich, but they are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And that's something that I have learned over the years. Even if they're donating $30, for some $30 is a lot. For others, $30 is nothing. If you know the income, or you have a better understanding of what these people make, then if a person is just supporting you $30, you got to ask yourself, if they have a huge amounts of money, why are they not investing more than $30? So I had a little survey also with people, and it was not a written survey. It was just, I went into my database, we identified who are my largest donors throughout the year, and according to how much they have given. And then I also looked at the overall. At the moment, we have about 350 sponsors on monthly basis. We have 500 total, or a little bit over 500, but not everybody donates at the same time. And so I thought, okay, if people who are supporting me just $30, is it because they don't have any more than $30? Or is it because my message is giving them a small vision? And I talked to two of them. They're business people. They run huge companies. They were actually placed as a number 50 in the 500 Fortune companies. And so I thought, well, they're giving a lot of money to another organization. Why do they believe in mine or do they not? And they said to me that my ask at times is too small for them. And I realized with donors who have larger income, I got to appeal on a different level, and I need to give them a different structure. So if I'm going to ask for just $1,000, they can probably give me $1,000, but even to them, they're like, well, what if I wanted to give you five? How would you structure your ask? And I started hearing what they were saying. If I'm only asking for $30 and I want a lot of people to be a part, that's great. But if I'm presenting a vision that's a longevity driven and it's for the next 10 years or 20 years, and I'm saying we need several people, we need 10 people that would sponsor us for $1,000 a month for the next 6 months, because we're building this location. Like right now in Bulgaria, there is a kindergarten that's about to fall apart, and we have a lot of kids that attend that kindergarten. And if we want that kindergarten to be sustained and for the community to be involved, then we need people who could help us, because I don't have additional money to be painting and restructuring an entire building. So if I ask them like that and tell them, can you connect me with other people in your network that are either builders or they're nonprofits, or specifically to help nonprofits to build playgrounds or to build buildings? I have been amazed at how many people have resources, but they're just never asked to offer them. And so I started asking right and left. I mean, I'm asking pretty much everybody that I identify as a high donor level, higher amounts of funds, and in higher investment of my organization, because that draws them closer to me. So right now, I was able to go and do a presentation in December to a group of only men who were older businessmen in Orange County. That was a connection made through somebody else that I had met through a radio show. And they heard me speak and they thought, oh, let's invite you to the men. They're all over 75 years of age, all are retired. They meet at 6 a.m. in the morning for breakfast every Thursday. And I had to show up there at 5:15 in the morning to set up the table. Half of them couldn't even hear me. They're with hearing aids. The PowerPoint wasn't working, couldn't show them a video. And I just shared a simple story of what playgrounds do in Bulgaria. One of the men, it only takes one, and that's what I want to emphasize. It only takes one person to hear your heart to mobilize everybody else to do something. I didn't want this to be a fundraiser that came from me. I wanted it to be a vision that they connected with. This guy got up right after I spoke and he said, you know, I'm hearing Ceitci for the first time. I'm connecting with her vision and how easy it would be for all of us to just raise funds. $5,000 is nothing. Any of us here could probably even just give that a whole amount of money, or maybe we can just all be a part somehow. In 3 weeks, they raised all $5,000 for our fourth playground, which we're going to work on after the lockdown is over. But I gave them something to do. And they started calling the next day. They got together. They called me. They said, we're brainstorming of how to reach out to our business friends who have retired and tell them that they can be involved. And we're showing you video and we're sharing with everybody else. So see, you just never know what you invested for 30 minutes of how it's going to play out after. So let's go on to the next slide, and we're going to open it in just a couple of slides for some discussion. Relationships, true or false? So 25% of older donors give online, and that is true. So don't be afraid to send links in your email publications, and also when you're asking with a video, always include something online where they can hop in. They're not always going to use an envelope. a lot of people now are learning and wanting to just give online. Major donors give online, that is true. Online donors give offline, that is false. So if you have an online donor, chances are that if they really love you, they're going to use any method to give to you, but don't make it complicated. Social media doesn't raise money. That is also false. It raises money. I have done it through our videos, through our publications and followers. Even just in the last 24 hours, I published our newsletter. I sent it out to people. I saw that the opening rate was about 20%, and it gets resent again in 4 days, or actually 5 days, next Tuesday. But it may increase at that point. And I thought, well, I need to do something more about this newsletter because not a lot of people are seeing it. If they have Gmail accounts, Gmail automatically can separate our bulk mailing that we're sending into their bulk mail account, and then they never see it. So I posted it online. Facebook took down my entire post after 3 minutes because they thought it was spam. Because right now there are so many fact checkers going on Facebook. They're taking down random posts also. They're not just checking for political issues. They're just checking everything that they think is not accurate for them to see. And I wrote them, I said, hey, this is my nonprofit organization. Like, why did you take down my post? And they said, well, it looked like it was spam. And so I thought, well, I'm going to change the picture then, because on the picture, it had a little graphic that showed how much money people can donate. So you can see my post this afternoon, but I switched it with just a regular picture and just Hope Campaign on the bottom. And I created the link and I added it to our comments. So that post wasn't generating a lot of views either, but I put it on our storyline. And within 2 hours, I had 200 people that had seen it. And people started messaging me on the story, because when you're looking on the story, you can see the message on the bottom. And when they started engaging on the messenger, I thought, oh, good. See, this is one way I can create an automated message, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But I'll get that information quickly to them so you don't have to retype it over and over. And so my text message basically was, hey, thanks so much for wanting to donate and continue to be a giver of hope. Here is the link, because they can't click on a link that Facebook is not providing on that particular story. And so I have to send it to them on that. And the same is with Instagram. If you don't have following of several thousand, and that's, I think, the cutoff or the startup is 10,000 or more, then you can't really post live links in your story for people to connect immediately. So you have to do it in a way that tells them to private message you so that you can send them the link. And then donors hate being called. That is also false. People love for somebody to call them. So the way we have it with our organization is just like Bishop was referring to yesterday. We have time constraints. I can't call every single person on our mailing list or on our donor list, but I do have my assistant, and she is an introvert, so she doesn't really like talking on the phone, but she's great with emails. So because I know her strengths and I know her weaknesses, I'm not going to put her up to call a whole bunch of people, because that will exhaust her. So I have somebody else that has a very pleasant voice. She has been a partner with us for a long time. She's a close friend of mine. She loves calling and praying for people. I give her a list of people that she can call throughout that month with the amount of donations that they have given and why it's important for her to acknowledge them. And if they have specifically said any prayer needs, then she can specifically pray for them. If they haven't listed any prayer needs, she can ask them. We started connecting with donors on the phone, and then during Christmas time, I take about a week and a half to two before Christmas to make individual calls. A lot of the times I reach them by voicemail, and I just leave a little voicemail message and say, thank you, this is Ceitci. I appreciate you for supporting us during this whole year. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to reach this many kids, and I give them statistics of what we have done. And then feel free to reach back to us. And I give them usually our office number, not my cell phone number. So if you're calling from your cell phone, before you start making a bunch of calls, make sure that you turn off your cell phone number privacy, so that not everybody, if you don't want your number shared, not everybody needs to have your number. And that's how I call them and leave messages, or I just do a little voice message and I text it over to them. For those who are not older people and are advanced in text messaging. So the way you do the little recording on a text message, if you pull up your text message, you're going to see that anytime you can create a little, on the iPhone, you see a little area there in your iMessage that looks like a signal. You press on it, you hold it down, and you record your message, and you send it over to them, and it becomes a little voice message via text. And so it's wonderful to utilize whatever equipment you have, understand how your phone works so that you can use all of the different features that it comes with. I've been using iPhone for a long time, so I cannot really tell you anything about Android or any other equipment out there. And then, does your organization have room for more funding? I'm sure everybody can say, yes, I want more funding. So if you're prepared to say yes, you need to be also prepared to explain to them how you're going to dispense the money. Do you actually have a plan that you can share in a concise way? And that's something that you can work on. If you're raising funds for a book, if you're raising funds for sponsorship of girls that you have in your program that are basically rescued out of trafficking, or if you have children who have been rescued, if you have people that you're supporting in other countries and you're really involved in their life, you know, you got to be able to tell them what your plan is and what exactly it involves. I need $3,000 towards the playground, or I mean, I'm just giving you from my example because I had to come up with a plan that was 1, 2, 3. We need money for sponsorship every month. We have 2,000 kids. Not all of them are sponsored. A lot of them need sponsorship. So we have 150 kids that still need sponsorship. Do you want to support 1 kid, 10 kids, 5 kids? And then you break it down to the amount of money. If you're doing the same thing for a just general fund, and you're saying, you know, in our organization, we just need general fund money. I got to pay people salaries. We got to be able to keep our staff during this time and still do all of the work. You know, I've raised funds for the salaries. I call them salaries, although they're just still considered as a donation when I'm sending them to our Bulgarian teams, because it's cross-cultural, so I can't lead them as an actual employee from here. But I had to raise funds for their funding, because if they're working full-time, they don't have time to be working on our nonprofit. So make a precise, concise plan. Let's go on to the next slide. Reasons why people don't give. And they're too young. Sometimes they don't have a lot of income, or they're too old. They're on a fixed income. Maybe there is a downturn in income. Right now, there's different people having different amounts of money that have come in. You know, in America, we actually have a system that's providing stimulus checks to people. That's not going to be in the other countries. I will tell you, Bulgaria has no stimulus check. at all for any of the people that are living there. Neither is Uganda, neither are these third world countries. And so when we're talking about downturn in income, it is huge amount of poverty and hopelessness in other nations. Right now, we're still kind of on the upwards side here in America, even with all of the unemployment that has been filed. Don't assume that everybody that's supporting you is a part of the unemployment. I contacted a lot of my partners in the last several weeks ever since this started. And I specifically asked them, has your income been influenced? 90% have said no. So 10% have a little bit of an income down influence, but 90% have somehow, they're still working, they're entrepreneurs, they're managing business from home, and they still have upflow. So the next thing people don't give is they're no longer interested. And really, sometimes you just can't do enough to please everybody that's going to stay interested. If they're not interested, it's okay. But if you're doing some major mistakes and that's why they're not interested, like you're not engaging them properly, you're asking too much in every single newsletter, you're asking for way too much without providing enough value for them, then they're probably not going to be interested. I get newsletters out of the blue, and I'm going to show you the do's and don'ts in a few slides down. But it's really interesting to me that out of the blue, I get a newsletter, haven't heard from the person at all, and the entire newsletter is an ask. I have no idea where they're at. Why should I trust them? So we don't do that. And then slow in receipts and thanking them. When a ministry takes 3 to 6 months to thank somebody for their donation, you will lose sponsors. And that is not something that you are led by the Holy Spirit to do. So do not ever use God as why you couldn't get to write a partner's letter or a thank you letter. Because a lot of people tell me, well, the Lord didn't lead me to. I will tell you right now, it has nothing to do with the Lord leading you. It has to do with discipline. So, you know, I don't always feel like it, but I am writing that partner's letter and I adjust my attitude as we go. That's what we were talking about yesterday. So receipts are very, very important, and thanking them. Ministry is not responsive. Basically, they call you and you never answer the phone, or they leave several messages and they don't hear back. They text you and you don't respond. I had an internship program for young people in training them how to become ministers. I did that for several years in Seattle when I had an actual office building that somebody had given us. I had 20 people, and I thought it was going to be easy breezy. I'm just going to train them, they're going to learn, and it's just going to be great. First thing happened immediately. They had no idea why they needed to show up on time. The next thing was always complaining that they were exhausted. And here I am, I was a lot older than them. And then no response. People would email them and they would take 3 weeks to send a message back. So that was like number one thing that I had to address in every single class: respond right away. And especially respond to people that you know. That is something from our WIN classes. And I always give Bishop as an example. She's one of the busiest people and she always responds to every email. And basically it tells us that you're never too busy to send a nice little one sentence message to somebody. And that's all it takes. And then we have the ministry no longer feels unique and remarkable. Well, how do you keep people engaged? And that is by you changing your style and communication with what is trendy. So fonts are changing, colors change every year. You don't always have to change colors, but you do have to adapt different fonts. What worked in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000 as far as font, it doesn't work anymore. Fonts are now a lot cleaner. White space is a huge thing. that people love. So not all of this is crowded. People want to see pictures, big images instead of little things. So the ministry has to stay unique. You have to create that feel of how is your website different, why is your post different, and what makes you different and more and remarkable in that particular area of expertise that you're providing. And every single one of us here, I want to remind you, besides the fact that you're running a nonprofit, you are a minister. You have a lot of knowledge and information and scriptural knowledge and understanding of how not only ministry but behavior of people and how to run organization. Utilize all of that as a part of your building of audience. If you haven't recorded yourself doing a video on leadership, and you have experience in leadership, you have abilities to talk about leadership, record yourself with short segments, just 2-3 minutes long, and talk about, hey, today we're going to address how to be a good leader, 3 steps that I've learned, or 3 things that are, the most predominant among leaders. Why do leaders fail? Here's 5 examples. The thing that is trending always on Google is 5 steps to this, 3 steps to that, 1 major key. And everybody has some key to offer. But when you research it and you see, hey, this is 1 key that I can implement, people would click on the link. And if it's something important, then they'll stick with that information. They can sign up for the mailing list. You're making it relevant to them, and you're speaking out of your own expertise. So don't always make everything so spiritual, because some people are not on the same spiritual level as you are. And when we start talking over the head of people on spirituality, they will tune us off. And that is very much for young people right now. Young people relate more to personal examples rather than over spiritual aspects. So the next thing is, the ministry talks only about itself. If I constantly talk about me and throw names of people that I know and utilize all of my networks just to promote myself, probably people will stop following me because they can't relate. Being around Hollywood and living in California for 7.5 years, name dropping there is huge. I mean, every other person knows somebody influential, and by the time they're done talking, you feel either this big, or you're thinking, well, how impressive is this, because 20 other people. Like, I don't relate to you. And so for the most part, this basically goes to nowhere, to just do name dropping. That was a huge deal in the charismatic circles in the last several years, where people would get up and talk about all their accomplishments by name dropping of every big minister's name that they knew. Okay, that no longer flies, especially right now in coronavirus crisis. And if nothing else, a lot of the negatives of coronavirus we already know, but there are a couple of positives. One is, you can't just run around promoting yourself like you used to, because everybody is on the same level right now, and we got to find a different way of talking about the Lord without exalting ourselves. And the second thing is, church as usual and playing church is no longer going to be flying around. I mean, in Bulgaria, the prime minister, this was really interesting to me, never closed the churches. He closed everything else, but he said, I am more afraid of God than I am of the virus. So I want people to have a place of safety where they can go and pray and worship. And so church was never closed. It's still not closed. They have certain restrictions of how they can continue to worship and meet. But here in America, I don't know if mega churches will be able to go back to the regular way they're doing services, just because we're going to have so many new restrictions per state. And the talking about ourselves and in some of these churches is not going to work anymore, because people need to know how they can survive and know the Lord rather than know everything about the person on the pulpit. And then number one reason why people do not give is because they're not asked. So if you never ask, they won't give. But if you also ask in a pushy way, in a demeaning way, they're also not going to give. So sometimes you can have a soft ask. You know, you can explain, hey, this is what we have done. And if you would love to be a part, here is the link. In my personal experience, I have been a direct ask from pulpit, meaning I can get up, explain the whole vision, and say at the end of the service, you will have an opportunity to give. And this is the amount of money that we're wanting to raise today. Everything is going to go towards this particular project. I have done soft ask primarily through our newsletters and publications, because these people already know me. I don't have to be so direct in pushing them to give. And I never ask additionally in our partners letters. I can tell them, hey, feel free to share the information. Feel free to talk to somebody in your circle of influence who may benefit from our organization and may want to be involved. But to ask them again for the same amount of money that I asked in the actual regular newsletter, it's counterproductive, because then they don't feel like I'm appreciating them as a partner. So not enough ask and too much ask are both going to be negative. The next point is, why do people give? They're asked in the right way, with the sincerity, relationship, and not being treated like ATMs. They see results. They see compelling and targeted projects. They see solutions that you're providing as an organization and not problems. With other words, if I list all of the problems that we have going on in Bulgaria with the government and with finances and people dying and children being trafficked, and I'm constantly talking about the problem, but I am not telling them, you know what, here's the problem. We have 80% trafficking that comes out of Bulgaria, and it's spread into the rest of Europe. But this is what we're doing. We are not focusing on the traffickers. We're focusing on the children and how to get them off the street. So if we can get them off the street, then the traffickers are not going to find them that easily. And if the parents are educated, that they're not going to sell their children. So the way we're doing this is we have home-to-home visitations. We know every single family. We know every single child. So I'm providing a solution of how we're targeting this, rather than, oh, we have a lot of solutions and you can't even list one in 3 minutes or 5 minutes. People need to have solution immediately. 2 points, 2 bullet points. Always think, what are my solutions to the current problem, and how do I explain it in just a couple of sentences? It needs to be precise. It needs to be clear. Thank them more than you ask them. So that's why people give. This is from a survey that I've researched online, and I have found from different websites what worked and what didn't for people, and I just put it together as bullet points for you. The next slide, and then we're going to take a quick break. Not a break, but meaning we're going to talk about, in a group discussion, how to deal with disappointment. And we touched on that over the last 2 nights, but having realistic goals and expectations to create proper timelines. If you're starting out right now to grow a mailing list and you want to have 500 people on the list, but in your regular circle of influence, you don't even know 150 to 200, to grow your list to 500, being at home right now is going to take a lot of creativity and time. So maybe you can say, hey, my list only includes 100 people, but I want to grow it to 150. Where do I find 50 people, and what is my time frame to finding these 50 people? How do I reach out to the current ones that I already have in my sphere of influence? And what messages do I send them? I've given you quite a bit of context prior how to present things, but we're going to learn how to do it in a messaging type of a way in a minute here. So have an accountability team. You know, it's very important if you have a board of directors or if you have somebody to create accountability with. For example, not everybody that, well, I have the 4 board members. So those guys are busy as it is. They have children, they have grandchildren, they're running their own nonprofit. So that's not going to be my accountability team in a day-to-day basis. They're there for once a year or twice a year. But I can have a different accountability team. My accountability team really becomes all of my partners. If I promise them that in 2 months we're building a playground, I better have a plan of how that playground is going to be built. If I promise them that we're going to be reaching 300 more kids and adding them to the program, I better have a plan of developing teams ahead of time to be able to handle those 300 kids. So my accountability is before my partners, before the people that support me and follow me. And then I also have a core group of people that are, I call them my peer team. And those are like 5 girlfriends. We all started out in full-time ministry when we were 19. And we went to Bible college together and we stayed in touch. We connect once a month or once every other month. And we just discuss, hey, what are you struggling with? What kind of goals have you created? And we don't just talk about, we really have a precise way of talking. We're not sitting there talking about their kids and what they're eating and food and all of that stuff. We're there to meet for 30, 40 minutes and to say, here is what I'm struggling with as far as ministry. And here is where I need help, and I need to know what you guys are doing differently. Because we're on the same age, we can relate. And I can also do the same, not as an accountability, but as an encouragement. If I need an encouragement from somebody who knows more than I do, then I call them up. But be accountable with your emotions, with your mindset, with how you putting money together and budget together. You have to have that inner connectivity with your team members and accountability within them, with your board, and then with your friends. And then learn how to encourage yourself in the Lord. When I was unmarried, which was for 44 years altogether, because I'm a newlywed, I didn't have somebody cheering me on every single day and telling me, hey, you're amazing, you're doing an amazing job. I put scriptures on the mirror. I put scriptures on my phone. I put things and created different affirmations for myself in a specific book, that if I was discouraged and nothing was going right, that I can open it up, remember God's victories in my life, remember his miracles, and tell myself who I am. And I did that a lot in different seasons of life. And then keeping the big picture in front of your eyes. Currently, because we moved and we have a smaller apartment, I can't have my own individual office. My husband and I share an office, so I can't put all of the pictures. But when I had my own place, my office consisted of the faces of the children and of the people that we have reached, so that every day I walked in, my purpose was in front of my eyes. I could see it, and I had a big world map. I was so energized by just looking at the faces of these kids. And I really got that from day one when I stepped feet on American soil and I went to Victory Bible Institute. And at that time, they were utilizing part of the Osborne Ministries offices were there. So the first thing that my feet stepped on was the world map in the entryway. And for those of you who are from Tulsa, you would know what I'm talking about. But I loved it. I was like, wow, I'm here to learn about missions, and my feet are going to touch all these nations in one way or another, maybe through my voice, maybe not my real feet. And then I looked at the pictures all around and I had a vision. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. If they have done it, I'll do it. And so, you know, I love giving Bishop LaDonna as an example, because I am telling you, I give her credit everywhere I go. And I wish everybody that has learned from her does the same, especially when we're taking different classes, because what works needs to be transitioned into other generations and given to them as a principle. And visualization of where you're going needs to be in front of your eyes. We have pin boards now that you can create on your phone. We have charts, we have vision boards that you can create. It's one thing to see it on your phone and it's still digital. It works differently than if you have a picture on the wall. So we're talking about expanding next time we're moving to a different place, so that I have my own office, Mark has his own office, so we can see what our vision is. His is movies. He's been in marketing for movies for all of these years. He wants to put posters of the movies he's worked on that have been on the big screen, because that energizes him. Mine is kids, so I want to put that. So decide what you want to put, and if you don't have space, at least put it on your phone and be aware of what's happening, what your big vision is. Okay, before we go into presenting your vision, which we're going to go through these 3 slides pretty quickly because we already talked about vision and mission. I want to just open it for a little bit of discussion, and then at 12, we're going to take a break. So let's go ahead, Jen, and open this, or actually you can just unmute yourself. But let's discuss some of those slides of what you're learning so far, because I know I bombarded you here with a lot of information. If you have new questions, make sure to submit them as well. Oh, I see a question actually from Joyce. On your 2019 chart of division, do you have bank accounts for each box section? So we don't call it a bank account. I just have it separated as a, so like, for example, when you saw that I have a box for Adopt a Neighborhood campaign, that is created in Salesforce as a campaign, so that when a donation comes, it connects with that particular campaign, with the Hope campaign, with sponsorship campaign. So yes, we track the donations by campaign, but we don't separate it in the bank account. We separate it in our accounting privately in QuickBooks and also in my database. The next one is you created a DBA for DBA, doing business as. That means people can donate with that name to your nonprofit, correct? This avoids us creating more than one 501c3, just clarification. Yes, so I wanted, my name is complicated enough to pronounce, nevertheless for somebody to remember how to write it. So I created several abbreviations that I have registered with the bank and with the IRS. One is CDM, the other one is CG, the other one is Ceitci Demirkova Ministries, and Changing a Generation. All of those are registered so that the bank knows when I'm depositing a check and says CDM to accept it. And then the only 2 organizations, well, I only have one 501c3, but they're both names are registered underneath it. So yes, that is correct. When you ask for a one-time, for one thing at a time, do you mean this on all platforms, only for the month? So yes, when you're asking for one thing at a time, if this month and next month I'm only doing a campaign and my big push is going to be the Hope campaign, I'm not going to ask at the same time for a playground and a whole bunch of sponsorships. It will still be there, it will still be available, but my big push is going to be one main thing. When I was promoting my book, Motivated by the Impossible, I was promoting it and asking people to buy it. So that was my big push at the time. But that didn't mean that I abandoned the sponsorship and everything else. I actually did it in a way that I said, when you buy a book, that doesn't go to financial support for me. It goes back to our nonprofit. So I'm creating income through sales of books, t-shirts, pens, whatever it is, you name it. And that goes towards sponsorship of children in whatever we're doing. So you can still ask for one thing, but you can specify what that one thing is going to also entail, and how people are going to benefit from it. I know that right now Bishop is promoting the new book, basically a revised version of Soul Winning, and that book has been around for many years, but the new cover looks amazing. It's been edited, it has a different forward, and so, you know, she's promoting it as Soul Winning, but that entails everything that they have done over the years. So it's very easy for the title of the book to also be connected to soul winning. How are we winning people around the world right now? And your donations are connected to the book. And so see how it becomes integrated. And that's one thing, you know, for those of you who are not aware that there is a new book, I definitely want to encourage you after this course to buy the book. And, you know, it's available to everybody, osborne.org. You can order it, you can receive it and read it, encourage people. I believe that when you promote somebody else, it doesn't take from your stage platform anything. It doesn't diminish your light and your message. I am a firm believer of promoting other ministries that I believe in, and the Osborne ministry is definitely one. And so I'm thinking of ways that when I have the actual copy of the book, what kind of video do I want to make to promote it? What kind of post do I want to create that's going to help somebody else? I've done that for other people's books, and why not for our bishop, and how much of an impact that book is going to make. And I will tell you this, what her message and the audience that she reaches may not reach my audience, because they may not think it's relevant to them until I tell them it's relevant. So it's my responsibility to create it in a way that my audience is going to receive from me about the book and the ministry. So we all have power to promote our ministries in different ways on different platforms. I think these are the three questions that I see here from Joyce. If there was another question, please go ahead and write it out. So any discussions, any questions, any observations so far of this information that we have been learning about? Make sure to unmute yourself first.
Yes, I'm curious. I know you mentioned all the platforms that you do use and for sending out the letters automatically and everything. But are you going to, within what you're going to send it at the end, will all of that be in there, included?
Well, actually, 3 slides from now, we're going to be looking at that on the computer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Babette speaking. I am so encouraged by what I'm learning here today. And one of the things that comes to my mind, and I just want to say this more as an encouragement, and that is that we can spend so much time studying. Believe me, it's ongoing. After being in 11 colleges, and I could talk about, you know, constant, doing the TED Talks and even paying for coaches, and not just in business, in ministry, and listening to Bishop for 23 years. Can you believe it's that long? And there's been so much information and so much input. It's never enough. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that as a driving force, like you've just got to have information, because information on its own doesn't help you. You have to implement the information. Mm-hmm. But I want to encourage everybody to continue to get knowledge. And then the knowledge on its own is not good enough. We need instruction, we need understanding. I love the way that you're making it so simplistic of how to implement that knowledge. And when we do implement it, we do begin to gain a way of walking in wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be afraid to gain knowledge. And I'm sure some of the people on here will understand when I say this, that especially when we're starting to enter into using various platforms that we might never have used before, don't be afraid. Go and find somebody who will walk with you through that. How to open it up, how to utilize it, how to utilize it at its optimal. Never be afraid. Now, I mean, I'm 60 this year, and yet every day I'm learning something new, saying, you know, I have a PhD, I have this. It doesn't mean anything in the big picture of there's so much more to learn. And there's so much more that we can say, you know what, I've learned this, but I can throw that out now, or put it aside and adapt with this. And again, going back to what Bishop said about flexibility. So I want to encourage all of us that even when we leave at the end of today, to go back and go over the notes, and then to say there's still more coming. Isn't that exciting?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like breathing. You can never stop breathing. And when you lessen your breathing, you won't be utilizing everything you have at optimal. And I know that you're bringing it right at the end. You mentioned some things about doing with excellence. And that's something that Bishop promotes and pushes. And every day I'm trying to say, how do I do this? Not with perfection, but with excellence, with passion and with excellence. And you really think, you know, wow, I'm doing this, but there's just so much more. Don't be afraid of the so much more. It's like walking on a journey. You don't say, I've got to get to the end. You say, what am I doing today towards the end result?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so encouraged today. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you so much for just expressing that and encouraging all of us. Like I said on Thursday night, I am kind of a self-taught person. I didn't go through a lot of schooling for all of this. I've taken online courses and I've done a lot of study, but it wasn't like a degree that I got into social media and posting and newsletters. It's just learning as we go. And nowadays, you can type up anything in the search Google form, and it will pull up articles and videos and a ton of information that you can continue to expand that knowledge. And if I didn't answer a question or something is unclear, you know, make sure you go online first, type it up, because I am positive some YouTube video has been done on that subject, and check how many views it had, because if it had a lot of views, that means that the person giving you the information is actually giving you something important. And then, you know, as far as practical things that we may not all cover here, they're there. And so don't be afraid to just research them. I have, before I continue with the discussion, there is another question regarding books. What is your opinion on self-publishing versus other? And are your books under the nonprofit or personal? How you determine that? You might be answering it later. I'm actually not answering about books later, so I'm going to cover this right now. So here is the thing about publishing. In order for your book to be recognized by publishing stores and be put on different areas where you're not the only one selling the book, but you want other platforms to be selling it, any platform that is available to sell your book in bookstores. If you're doing just self-publishing through Amazon, they will not acknowledge your book as anything that's recognizable, because anybody can write a book and publish it on Amazon, and nobody knows what the content is about or what happened, and how legitimate it is. So what I did is I created a self-publishing company underneath my nonprofit, and it's only $5. I didn't even realize that I can add another name underneath my nonprofit organization by calling. It wasn't the IRS, and I can't remember who I called, but it was in connection to adding a name to my nonprofit. And LegalZoom.com, if you use them, it was going to be $800 for them to add the name to the nonprofit. I found out that it's only $5 if I just called the number and they add it for you. And it depends on where you registered. I'm registered in Washington State, so I had to call the Washington State Department where the organization is registered and tell them, I want to add CD publishing to my nonprofit name, and I want to use it as a part of my publication company. But all of the money that comes in is coming into my nonprofit organization. I don't utilize, personally for me, I don't utilize money from my publications. For me personally, I give the copyright entirely to the nonprofit organization. So we can raise more funding. I use it as a fundraising method as well. And, but in order for me to put it on Amazon and be a recognizable book, I connected a publishing company, and I have put that in your general resource information, which at the very end of class, we're going to go over that list just so you see what I have included. And there is a new list that is coming on Monday to you, because I included more websites over the last 2 days as people have asked questions. So there are various publishing companies at the moment that allow you to still self-publish by using their publishing name. So I use Gatekeeper Press. I edited the book. Well, I had an editor and I had a designer. And so I just asked them to actually publish it and give me their name, so that when they're advertising, it goes as Ceitci Demirkova Ministry or CD Publishing, but it has a regular publisher connected to the name of my book. So then you can distribute it in Barnes and Noble, you can distribute it on Amazon, you can distribute it on whatever other platform you want to sell it, at Walmart, at different stores. You know, a lot of times nowadays, people are not going and buying real books at any of these stores. They buy them online. And it really works in your advantage if before you release the book, you have a few people read the book and then they write reviews. And get the reviews ready so that when you release it, immediately they go on your Amazon page where the book is listed and write reviews about it. Because if there is no reviews, you can have an amazing book, but people look to see, is it good, is it not? And I asked 50 friends to write reviews before the book even came out. I sent them the book in a PDF version. I said, hey, even read the first chapter, the first 2 chapters, and write something about it. It doesn't have to be long. And then when we released it and I wanted it to be a bestseller, everybody got online and in 24 to 48 hours filled out their reviews. And that's how the book ends up going to be a #1 on the Amazon platform, because it's looking for traction. So that's very helpful there. And then you can still do self-publishing. I'm going to do self-publishing on this new book, but I'm not distributing it to become a bestseller. So it depends what you're going to be doing with the book. My previous book, and I'll show you guys a copy of it in the afternoon. I don't have it right here in front of me, but I created a lot of things. I created a course with it. I created the t-shirts, I created bookmarks, created little necklaces. I mean, pens, you name it, it was there. It was the full merchandise connected to the book. And what I found interesting is that once I was done with the book sales and I started doing t-shirts and books, unless I packaged them together, I sold more t-shirts than books, because people are going to buy one or the other and they rather not read. So they rather wear something. And I figured really quickly, if I want people to read the book, hey, get the book and the t-shirt for $30 rather than $45. So this way I'm selling 2 items at the same time, and that worked a lot better. So even if they didn't want a book, they're getting a book. So hope that answers that question. And when you're doing self-publishing, it's a lot of work to come up. If you don't know what you're doing, I spent a whole month and a half researching how to get all of the code and registration and everything else. Then I found out that this Gatekeepers Press did all of that, and $400 would have saved me the 2 months of studying and researching, but I know how to do it for next time. But anyway, there is that possibility there. And there are other organizations and nonprofits and publishing companies that do the same thing. Regular publishing company, let me just address that. So I went to a regular publishing company. My book was not accepted in any of them. I sent it as a PDF file to various standard publishers where they publish, they edit, they do everything, they distribute it for you. The distribution platform was very limited for what I wanted to do. I didn't like it. They were taking a huge percentage of the income of what was coming from the book. And one publisher said my book didn't have any major value because it wasn't appealing to their audience. And I looked at them and I said, well, guess what? My book is going to be a bestseller and it's going to win awards because I've written it with that in mind. And they just laughed. And when I won 3 awards and it became a bestseller, I sent them a copy of the book because we have all the stars on the bottom. I was like, yep, I did it. So I'm not always doing it to show somebody that I can do it. But there are times, especially when dealing with publishing companies, that you got to read the small print so that you don't get basically a lot of your information to them, and then you can't even republish it because they end up owning your content. In the small letters, they're going to say, well, all of your copyrights are for you, but are the printing rights yours also? Because if they're not yours, that means that they have right over the printing of the book. So even if you still own the copyright, you're going to have a lawyer later to get you out of that contract so that you can reprint books. I met with a lawyer here in Tulsa when I was thinking of going the regular route. He said that he was trying to get out of contract for thousands of dollars books that belong to Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, like big name speakers that outgrew the publisher. And the publisher is making money off of them, but because they own their publishing rights, now they have to pay for their own book to get it off of the publisher. And it was costing them thousands of dollars. So he said, if my audience is actually bigger than the publisher, and I had at least 2,000 followers and people on my mailing list, I didn't need a regular publisher to publish through a traditional way. But you know, everybody is different. I'm just talking from what my experience has been. If anybody's had different experience, feel free to jump in and add to this question.
If I can just mention something.
Mm-hmm.
One of my companies that I have, Smart Art, Graphic Design and Web Development, we help people publish their books, and it costs a fraction. And what we do is we get your whole book ready, your back, your front, your inside, we set it, and we give everything to you. We don't hold on to anything. And then we give you the platforms to help you to get into. We don't do that side for distribution. So we will, to the point where we will literally have it printed for you, and you'll get boxes of your books, and then you can order as much as you want through the printer. So we hand that off to you, or we can help with the printer. But as far as platforms, we will then give you the help how to find those and what to do with those. A lot of our clients before have then taken the books on the road with them. Mm-hmm. So as they go and preach, they then put them on tables and things like that. That is actually the cheapest way. I hate to say cheapest, but because it's such a valuable product. But that is one of the cheapest ways of doing it, is to utilize people like myself.
Yeah, great. Have you included your website for that so that people know how to access it? If you haven't, feel free to add it to the chat, and we will make sure that everybody receives a list of the websites as well. Sandy's keeping track of those.
I think after lunch, I'd like to get onto my computer because on the phone, I can't do any of that.
Okay, gotcha.
So after lunch, I'm going to jump on through my computer and put on the information up there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other comments, observations in pertaining to the previous slides and information that we were looking at?
Yes, I know like a lot has been said, but these are little points that jump out and are encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
When you met with those, the group of men, and you said it can take only one person to mobilize everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That was really encouraging because sometimes you feel like you're not getting through to anyone, but that one person who captures your vision and kind of knows what you want can share that with everybody else and can change their heart into to kind of get on board with the vision as well.
Yeah,
and I thought
absolutely.
Profound.
It's always about the one. We reach one, we reach thousands. And the same thing is with donors. We reach one person and they can reach their sphere of influence and connect you. Very good. Okay, anybody else?
I would like to make a comment on something that you said that I feel is so important. I work with a lot of women in ministry and a lot of men. And your point about people not giving because they're not asked. Many times women are so hesitant to just ask for money.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big areas that I've tried to help some of these women, let's say, for example, a particular event that they're going to cancels, or they're going to have to be home for a period of time, and what they're wanting to do is not going to happen. I tell them, if you know a need and you are building partnership, you don't have a right to stop asking for money.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you receive funds for something, you can always get it to people who are doing what you are promoting.
Mm-hmm.
So I see sometimes women in their newsletters, they say too much.
Yep.
Oh, this place doesn't want me back anymore. Well, I'm going to have to be home to raise money, or I'm sorry that I don't need any money now because I'm going to be home. I can't go to this particular place. And that is, to me, is so selfish, because the need never goes away.
Yeah.
When we know the need, we keep building and planting in the hearts of people a compassion and a desire to participate in meeting that need. We become that link between the needs in an area and the people who can't do that, but they'll give so that it can be done. This is our responsibility.
Yes. So good. Thank you. And that is a great encouragement. You know, like right now, just even thinking, last month I had to inform everybody I don't have any meetings. Like I usually by now would have been in at least 20 states, and I can't go anywhere. All of my meetings are canceled through August, September possibly, depending on how things progress. I have meetings starting up in October, but nobody knows what's going to happen in October. So instead of saying to everybody, I have no meetings, so stop looking at my calendar, I was like, okay, so my regular in-person meetings are canceled at the moment, but I am doing a lot of online meetings, and you can join me by going on to the website and clicking the links, because they're connected to the different variations and aspects that I am going to be showing up and giving the message. So stay connected. And so you see, you can still have the need and just portray it in a different way. And then people don't have to lose your trust in you. Because I'm not sitting at home watching Netflix 24/7. Like a lot of people are going to assume that now that I'm home, probably have nothing to do. No, I have plenty to do. Like we were talking, we're busier now than before because we just have so much more to, it's like a huge learning curve. You got to do everything from the computer. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here in a pity party and tell people we can't raise any more money when we have been able to. And so my next thing is I'm going to record next week a little video, 2-minute, 3-minute, tell everybody, wow, you helped us. We raised, all this money for next week. We would have fed 900 families. I would have never thought that we could even raise in the beginning the money for 120. Now we have 900. For our organization, in just regular way of raising several 10, 15, $20,000, the way I've done it in the past through speaking engagements, it's a month and a half or two of me running like literally crazy all over the country raising money from offerings. It's just different now, and the Lord showing us I'm still God. Even when everything else falls down, I have ways of providing and creativity.
Can I piggyback that? And still on some of the recent slides from today, and then what Bishop said about you talking about communicating, how you communicate Bishop's recent comments. Would you mind to share with the ladies how many times you've been in Bulgaria in the last 10 years?
0.
You made your point about how you work with the team. That one answer synopsized so many of the slides, how you work with the team, how you find who has your heart, how, Bishop, you don't get pitiful and act like, that's all. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yes. And not being in Bulgaria, it's not because I don't want to be. There are just other things involved. And now I was planning on going this fall, and they've closed the border of Bulgaria indefinitely. You can't even get to Bulgaria now. So who knows what's going to happen. But at the same time, our team there is equipped without me being on the ground. They can live without me. They've done it all these years. So our work continues. And the thing is, nobody knows that I haven't been to Bulgaria, only people like you that are asking me right now, because I always say we did this and we did that, and we just had a mission trip, and we did. I was a part of it because I had to send these people there.
That's the point. You are demonstrating what you've been teaching. To me, that's so important to show. Someone could say, oh, no. Everything you've been teaching, you're demonstrating.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of years of learning and working hard. And that's why anybody that gives you a 3-minute message of growing your account and raising funds overnight, it is they're there to get your email address with that information, and that's about it, because there is just no quick way to go and do this unless there is a time passing, and things just happen with time. Things grow with time, and there is just no fast way trick over here to create longevity and sustainability in 3 forms or 3 points.